Thank you guys for watching this video. Like and subscribe to see more videos. Let's get into the video.
49 Chapter 49. Satoru's sharp observation stunned more than just the light-haired ninja who had been exposed. Kyoto Sato, who was fighting nearby, was also taken by surprise.
He's too sharp.
He figured out the truth so quickly? Before Sato could process it further, the enemy took advantage of his distraction and attacked swiftly. The sword slashed dangerously close to his forehead, grazing his hair. Sato quickly snapped back to attention and stepped back, narrowly avoiding the blow. A few strands of hair fell to the ground, carried by the cold light of the blade. That was close, he thought. He refocused, turning his attention back to his opponent, and resumed the battle. However, his ears couldn't help but stay tuned to Satoru's movements. It wasn't out of curiosity, it was just that the revelation Satoru had made earlier was too shocking to ignore. Satoru, still smiling brightly, turned his innocent gaze to the light-haired ninja. "Are you sick?" he asked, his voice light. "Why's your face so ugly?" This wasn't like using some drug to make skin and hair pale. What's going on here? He had never heard of the Boulder clan having this kind of characteristic. The innocent look on Satoru's face belied his sharp words. He didn't seem to realize how critical his observations were. He was simply trying to be helpful, offering a friendly reminder. It wasn't his fault their camouflage was poor. He gave an almost smug smile, preparing to continue his helpful
commentary.
"Look," Satoru said, turning his attention to the enemy again. "That Boulder ninja, he's used to close-range combat combined with ninjutsu. Every time he closes in, his fingers tense as if preparing for a seal. So next, he'll probably move in on the captain and use ninjutsu for a surprise attack." Satoru paused for dramatic effect. The best technique for close quarters would be thunderstorm. No sooner had he spoken the words than the enemy ninja shouted, "Thunderstorm." It was almost as if to verify Satoru's prediction. The Boulder ninja unleashed the lightning release technique immediately after Satoru finished speaking. Naoya Kichiji, the captain, reacted quickly, gaining an extra moment of awareness thanks to Satoru's warning. He dodged the attack just in time. The powerful thunderclap struck the ground, leaving a deep mark in the earth. At this point, all combat stopped. Everyone turned to look at Satoru, who had been casually explaining the battle moments before. Ninjas were known for their keen sense of hearing, and even the faintest sound could be heard clearly. It wasn't just his voice, it was the undisguised manner in which Satoru had spoken. It left everyone in stunned silence. Satoru, now the center of attention, furrowed his brow slightly, confused by the sudden quiet. "Hey!" he exclaimed, looking at the group. "What's with the stares? Why aren't you fighting?" The tension was palpable. Neither the Konoha ninjas, nor the Boulder clan members, knew how to respond. "Why don't we fight?" Didn't Satoru realize the situation? The Konoha ninjas were still trying to process Satoru's unexpected brilliance. They marveled at his sharp acumen, his uncanny judgment, and his unorthodox methods. But the Boulder clan members? They were in turmoil. Not only had their techniques been completely exposed, but their cover had been blown wide open. They felt as if they were standing in front of the Emperor in his new clothes, surrounded by mockery. They turned to Satoru, their expressions darkening in silence. The mood had shifted completely. Satoru, feeling the sudden tension, stroked his blindfold and glanced around, unsure of how to break the uncomfortable silence. Asterisk, what's going on? Why is everyone suddenly so quiet? Asterisk. He tilted his head, pondering how to address the awkwardness. Finally, he spoke again, trying to lighten the mood. "That's why I said," he began. "Ninjas can disguise their skin and hair color, but their essence doesn't change easily. Body shapes, habits, those change from region to region. It's hard to hide these physical traits and differences." He looked around at the stunned faces and continued. "You see? Don't you see it?" Unfortunately, Satoru's attempt to ease the tension only made it worse. His words, instead of calming the situation, seemed to only deepen the discomfort. A few members of the Boulder clan exchanged glances, and without a word, they turned and fled, their faces cold and resolute. There was nothing left to say. What if they couldn't control themselves and attacked the white-haired boy, starting a war with Konoha? They didn't want to take that risk. Their thoughts were clear. They didn't want to deal with him in the short term. 50 Chapter 50. After the Boulder Ninja departed, Naoya Kichiji looked at Satoru with a complicated expression. He had heard every word exchanged between Satoru and the Boulder Ninja, and it left him pondering. Is that why he was chosen for the shadows? Satoru's ability to accurately anticipate danger, his keen intuition, his logical and brilliant mind, and his extraordinary insight. Was this the sum of his talents? Naoya Kichiji shook his head.
No.
Satoru didn't just possess these qualities. He integrated them in a way that was both rational and clever. There was a reason why the Dark Division had chosen him. A teenage genius. Who could refuse someone like him? At that moment, Kichiji realized it had been his own narrow-mindedness that had caused him to hesitate. Meanwhile, Sato Kyoto, walking quickly beside Satoru, patted him on the shoulder and said, "You're too good, kid. Just by talking, you scared them all away." He sighed deeply, still in awe. I didn't expect this childlike teenager to be so powerful, unusually intelligent. Unlike us mortals, you're a true genius. Kyoto smiled proudly, not in jealousy, but in admiration. It's no wonder you were able to join the shadows at such a young age. Are all uchiha this rich in talent? The brilliance of their predecessors has been overshadowed. But Kyoto Sato wasn't angry or bitter. On the contrary, he felt proud. Proud that the new generation of young people was so impressive. He felt reassured knowing that Konoha had such capable youths to protect its future. The village was in safe hands, and his past misgivings about the uchiha had all but vanished. Under his blindfold, Satoru's eyes curved into a smile. "Of course," he said decisively, acknowledging the compliment. "Well, it's just words, you know? Can't the mouth itself be a weapon?" he said with a proud grin. God knows how many great heroes will fall victim to this technique in the future. He added dramatically, "The mouth can strike a lethal blow, leaving everyone weakened. Truly the most powerful ninjutsu in history." Kyoto Sato twitched the corner of his mouth in disbelief. "Of course, it's him." He regained his composure. "What I just saw must have been an illusion." The rest of the squad watched Satoru with a mix of awe and disbelief. Is this the kind of strength that qualifies him to be in the shadows? Such subtle observation, such keen insight. This was truly impressive. A genius. Without a doubt, a genius. If he continues to grow, his future will undoubtedly be brilliant. The team members whispered amongst themselves as they looked at Satoru, still in awe. 8 years old, unbelievable. Are 8-year-olds really this strong nowadays? It's hard to imagine such intelligence in someone so young. Is that why he's in the shadows? I thought he got in through the back door, but I was wrong to underestimate him. Such sharp observation skills and insight. With someone like him on our team, I'd feel much safer on missions. That's right. With his ability to read the situation so well, we'd save ourselves so much worry.
True.
In the end, it's not just strength that matters, it's intelligence and situational analysis. With him around, our team is definitely safer. Don't think too much. He's just a kid, but with someone this powerful, there's bound to be even stronger companions supporting him. We don't need to worry. Everyone sighed in unison. Genius can only be paired with genius. After packing up, the team continued on their way. They quickly passed through the woods in front of them and reached their destination. Naoya Kichiji handed the scroll to the mission target, and then, without a word, he turned and began to lead his team away. As a ninja, you couldn't afford to be too curious. Don't ask what you shouldn't ask, and don't listen to what you can't hear. This was the law they lived by. Now that the mission is complete, I'll go ahead, Satoru said suddenly, looking at Naoya Kichiji as the team started to move. Naoya Kichiji stopped, confused. Aren't you going back to the village to report? He asked. Satoru smiled mischievously. Isn't there still you, the captain? It's fine for you to go ahead on your own, he said with a teasing grin. I have other things to attend to. He had chosen the location for his new clan's land not far from here. He had been planning to visit it, and now was the perfect opportunity. It would look too obvious if he made a special trip just for that. However, if he took advantage of the mission to visit, he could get away with it. The timing and location were perfect. It would be a waste not to check on the progress of his new clan's land now. 51 Chapter 51. Skirting the dense forest ahead, he passed swamps, miasma, and mountains, finally arriving at a secluded location. I wonder what's going on here? He mused, a sly smile curling the corners of his mouth as he strolled forward. This was the new settlement he had chosen for the Uchiha clan. Some of the clansmen had already been relocated here. Following his memories, he soon came upon a familiar, yet strangely altered gate. What a change! Satoru's jaw nearly dropped in disbelief. The last time he had been here, there was nothing but a small wooden door carved with the words, "Land of Cold." The sight was almost pitiful. But now, a grand, palatial gate stood in its place, magnificent and imposing. The door was even carved with a familiar, wait, why did they change the name? Satoru's gaze shifted to where "Land of Cold" had once been engraved. Instead, the area now displayed 3 large characters. His lips twitched as he read them. Hitomi Country? Really? They actually used the name he had jokingly suggested? Satoru's face contorted as regret washed over him. He recalled how, upon first seeing the Land of Cold, he couldn't help but mock the name. The name's so cold, no wonder the place feels cold. He had quipped. On a whim, he had suggested, why not call it the Land of Contact Lenses? Faced with the bewildered Uchiha clansman, he'd casually explained. Beautiful pupils, as in eyes that are both powerful and elegant. It's the perfect name for our clan with our Sharingan. To his surprise, the idea had been met with praise and approval. But now, standing before the dazzling new name, he felt an overwhelming wave of regret. Land of Cold didn't seem so bad after all. This place, the Land of Cold, had been discovered purely by accident. At first, Satoru could hardly believe it was even a country. It was so small and obscure that it didn't even appear on most maps. Its remote location and poor economy had long rendered it irrelevant. Bandits ran rampant in earlier years, and most of the population had fled, unwilling to endure the hardships. Even the king had been killed by wandering ninjas and bandits. Caravans soon avoided the area altogether, fearing they'd lose both their goods and their lives. The remaining residents were destitute, clinging to survival. The new king, upon surveying the state of his land, wasted no time planning to sell it off and escape. That was when Satoru stepped in. Upon hearing this news, he emptied Uchiha Fugaku's vault and bought the entire territory. Could there be a better place to quietly grow and develop than this forgotten land? Satoru turned away from the ornate sign reading Hitomi Country and stepped through the grand gates. Unlike the solemn and austere atmosphere of the Uchiha clan's traditional compound, this place buzzed with life. Streets were bustling, and the people were thriving. This is impressive construction, Satoru muttered, letting his thoughts wander to the past. Back then, while he had managed to gain a measure of trust from his father, Uchiha Fugaku, the situation was still delicate. This wasn't just a trivial decision, it was about the survival of the Uchiha clan. As the patriarch, Fugaku couldn't afford to leave such matters solely in his hands. The militant factions within the clan would never agree, and even the peace-oriented elders were unlikely to trust him, a mere child in their eyes. Satoru knew this, and didn't waste time trying to win over the skeptical elders. Instead, he focused on earning the trust of the younger generation, those of his own age group. He positioned himself as their leader, gaining their loyalty step by step. With secret support from his father, he justified his actions by framing them as efforts to provide opportunities for those within the clan who lacked talent or had been injured in battle. These were people who could no longer continue as ninjas but still needed a livelihood. Taking those who trusted him, Satoru led them to the Land of Cold, where they established this new settlement for the Uchiha. Now, looking around at the thriving streets, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. The gamble had paid off. 52 Chapter 52. I'm just a genius. Satoru muttered with a bright smile, his lips curling mischievously. This place wasn't just a new source of income for the Uchiha clan. More importantly, it was their contingency plan, a safeguard for the future. However, his grand plan had not been smooth sailing from the beginning. At first, many clan elders fiercely opposed the idea. The Uchiha Sharingan was highly coveted, and relocating members outside their traditional grounds felt like exposing the clan's secrets. The backlash was as intense as Satoru had anticipated. To counter this, Satoru had started small. He didn't take key figures or prominent members from the main family. Instead, He quietly gathered branch family members and those who were undervalued or overlooked within the clan. These individuals, with little influence or importance, didn't draw much attention or stir opposition from the clan's higher-ups. Satoru also leveraged the success of his group's various business ventures, which brought significant financial gains to the clan. Money had a way of softening even the most rigid stances, and the uchiha elders began to waver. To further ease concerns, Satoru introduced comprehensive security measures to protect the clan's secrets. Interestingly, the militant faction within the uchiha showed little interest in these endeavors. They saw these individuals as unproductive, and were quick to approve the plan once assured of the bloodline's confidentiality. For them, reducing the financial burden of supporting these members was a welcome change. Meanwhile, the peace-loving elders, touched by Satoru's sincerity, eventually relented. They chose to trust him and allowed this experiment to move forward. In the end, Satoru successfully relocated this group to the newly established settlement, laying the foundation for the Uchiha's new stronghold. As he walked through the streets, Satoru lifted his blindfold and surveyed his surroundings. The transformation was incredible. They've outdone themselves. He couldn't help but grin as he observed the thriving community. His presence didn't go unnoticed. "Lord Satoru!" A young girl called out excitedly, breaking the quiet. Her cheerful greeting caught the attention of others nearby. "It really is Satoru-san," a man exclaimed in surprise. An elderly voice joined in. "Satoru-sama has returned." The street erupted into a frenzy as people recognized him. "It's been so long since we've seen Satoru-sama. Welcome back." The once displaced residents of the land of cold swarmed around him. These people, survivors of past hardships, owed their livelihoods to Satoru. Without his intervention, their futures would have been bleak. Their gratitude was palpable. Satoru, surrounded by the crowd, sighed internally.
This is terrifying.
With a small gesture and a flash of chakra, he teleported away, leaving the bustling crowd behind. After a brief walk around the settlement, Satoru left quietly, ensuring no further commotion. Konoha ninjas can't afford to stay out too long, after all, he reminded himself. Route headquarters. Danzo stared at the young woman before him. "Uchiha Suki." He began in a low, deliberate tone. "Has there been any movement within the Uchiha clan?" The woman, composed and calm, replied. "The Uchiha clan remains the same as usual." Her words faltered for a brief moment before she added.
"But..."
Danzo's sharp gaze didn't miss her hesitation. "But what?" he pressed. Uchiha Suki steadied herself and continued. "I discovered a stone tablet in Naka Shrine. It reveals the secret to unlocking the Uchiha clan's ultimate power, the Mangekyo Sharingan." Danzo's eyes narrowed. "And what does it say?" "To awaken the Mangekyo, one must." Suki hesitated before finishing. "Kill someone they deeply love." Danzo's pupils contracted in shock. The implication of such a revelation was staggering. He instinctively touched the bandaged eye beneath his hand. His Sharingan had nearly reached its limit, its power almost depleted. It was time for replacement. Turning his cold gaze back to Suki, Danzo spoke with calculated precision. "Uchiha Suki, I have a mission for you. Will you accept it?" Suki didn't hesitate. "For the sake of the village, I have no complaints about any task," she answered firmly. Danzo smirked, satisfied. "Your lover, Uchiha Shursui, is renowned as a genius. I need you to die at his hands." He let his words linger before adding. "Konoha requires the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan to protect itself. This sacrifice will serve the village's future. Will you carry out this mission?" Suki's hands trembled momentarily before she steadied herself. With unwavering resolve, she responded. "Uchiha Suki will complete the mission. It is for the development of the village. A small sacrifice is worth it." 53 Chapter 53. Early in the morning, Satoru sat perched on a telephone pole, gazing into the distance, pondering life. "Today's sugar intake is severely insufficient," he thought gloomily. "My brain's about to shut down from low energy." He considered a plan. Maybe I should
borrow
some money from Shursui and head to the South Street dim sum shop for desserts. Before he could put the plan into action, a sudden whoosh cut through the air. Something flew straight toward him. Without even looking, Satoru tilted his head and caught the object with one hand. It was a book. Satoru, unfazed, glanced at it casually. Of course, Six Eyes picked it up long before it arrived, he mused. Ica Paradise. He read aloud, his voice both curious and amused. Without bothering to read further, he jumped down from the telephone pole and tossed the book to Kakashi, who was standing nearby. Here, Kakashi, he said with a smirk. I didn't expect you to have such bad taste. This type of book isn't even popular anymore. Kakashi's visible eye twitched beneath his mask. Not popular? Kakashi thought incredulously. And how exactly does an 8-year-old know this? Mainstream, huh? You seem pretty well versed. Kakashi muttered under his breath. Does Itachi even know you're like this? Shaking off the thought, Kakashi quickly got to the point. Let's go. Hokage-sama has a mission for us,
He said. We.
Satoru asked indignantly. Don't tell me they don't trust my abilities. I'm more than enough to handle anything on my own. Probably. Kakashi said with a shrug as he walked. Details will come once we get there. With a sigh, Satoru followed Kakashi toward the Hokage's office. Before they even entered, Satoru's sharp eyes caught sight of two familiar figures waiting inside, Uchiha Itachi and Uchiha Shursui. What kind of mission could possibly require a combination like this? Satoru wondered. Are we invading Cloud Village? Assassinating a daimyo? With 3 Uchiha and Kakashi together, the assembled combat power was no joke. Satoru walked into the office with growing curiosity. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, put down his pen as they entered and addressed them calmly. You're here, he said. I've called you all together because there was a defection in Konoha not long ago. Hiruzen paused briefly before continuing. Your mission is to deal with this rogue shinobi. As they left the office, Satoru couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Why assign so many high-level shinobi for a simple S-class mission? He thought. There must be more to this defector than meets the eye. On the way back, Itachi turned to Satoru and quietly said, The rogue shinobi we're after is Uchiha Shursui's girlfriend. Satoru's eyes widened slightly. His girlfriend? He glanced at Shursui, whose mood had been off all morning.
It all made sense now.
When the two returned home, Uchiha Fugaku was already waiting for them. I heard you've been assigned a mission together, Fugaku said, his sharp eyes scanning both of his sons. What kind of mission requires the two of you to go out at the same time? Itachi, ever composed, responded, Ninjas are not allowed to disclose the contents of their missions. Fugaku frowned, clearly dissatisfied with the response. He turned his attention to Satoru instead, as if expecting a more straightforward answer. With a bright grin, Satoru said, Don't worry, Dad. We're just going to be magical boys on an adventure. Fugaku's face twitched at the absurdity of the reply. Magical boys. This kid is impossible. What nonsense have you been reading lately? Fugaku muttered, pinching the bridge of his nose. Do you have anything else to say? He asked, his tone stern. An S-class mission requiring both of you doesn't sound ordinary. Could there be something more to this? Satoru's expression turned serious. You don't have to worry so much, Dad. We've got this under control. Fugaku sighed deeply, glancing between his two sons. Finally, he relented.
Fine. Just go.
Out of sight, out of mind. At the meeting spot, Kakashi and Shursui were already waiting. Satoru approached with a playful smile. Hey, you're here too. Shursui, who had been unusually quiet, hesitated before speaking. Satoru, doesn't your mask and blindfold combination feel uncomfortable? Just looking at it makes me feel suffocated. Shursui added, raising an eyebrow. Satoru grinned mischievously. It's a fashion statement. You wouldn't understand. 54 Chapter 54. Not at all. Satoru said, a sly grin curling at the corners of his mouth. Heh, little brat. Shursui teased, shaking his head. At this rate, no girl will ever like you. Satoru's grin widened into a radiant smile. I don't rely on my face to win people over, he said confidently. If a woman doesn't love me for who I am, then being handsome is useless. His tone turned thoughtful, almost philosophical. There will always be those who fall for my unique soul, not just my ridiculously good looks. Ha. Shursui chuckled. And what exactly do you mean by that? What are you even talking about? Hearing this, Satoru raised an eyebrow. Generation gap, maybe? Shursui stared blankly for a moment before shaking his head. Completely incomprehensible. Realizing the futility of continuing that thread of conversation, Shursui tucked away the scroll he'd been holding and redirected the topic. But you're right about one thing, he said, his expression darkening suddenly. I'm going to hunt down the person who doesn't even appreciate my handsome face. The playful Shursui vanished, replaced by someone cold and dangerous. His demeanor shifted so sharply, it was almost frightening. Satoru blinked, his mouth twitching slightly. Whoa, hold up, he said, pointing at Shursui. Your image? Completely shattered. Once the teasing subsided, Kakashi took control of the conversation and began outlining the mission. According to our intelligence, the rogue ninja Uchiha Suki has been heading toward the Land of Water since leaving Konoha. Kakashi explained. At her current speed, she should still be within the borders of the Land of Fire. Our goal is to capture her before she crosses into foreign territory. Once she's outside the Fire Nation, it'll become much harder to locate her without causing an international incident. Kakashi paused before adding. Since the Sharingan is highly coveted, we need to be discreet to avoid drawing attention. But wait. Shursui interrupted suddenly. I thought the mission was to eliminate the traitor, not capture them alive. His voice was calm, betraying no emotion, but Satoru noticed the slight shift in his gaze. Heartbreak is a scary thing, Satoru thought, watching Shursui with mild concern. Is this what they call the power of despair? Kakashi shrugged. Even a traitor might possess valuable information. Capturing her alive allows for interrogation. Of course, if she resists. In that case, kill her on the spot. Itachi interjected, his tone cold and devoid of hesitation. Satoru glanced between Shursui and Itachi, both of whom seemed entirely transformed by the gravity of the mission. Okay, seriously. Satoru quipped. Do you two have dual personalities or something? You just flip a switch and suddenly become these grim workaholics. He turned to Shursui, grinning mischievously. And Shursui, isn't she your girlfriend? Don't act too indifferent, or you'll end up regretting it when it's too late. Shursui gave a wry smile, masking his true feelings. A dead relationship is a good relationship, he replied lightly. And on a mission, personal feelings don't matter. No wonder these two are such close friends, Satoru mused silently, observing Shursui and Itachi. They're so alike. The way they think, the choices they make, it's like they're cut from the same cloth. But the thought unsettled him. If everything continued along the original timeline, then when the night of the Uchiha massacre arrived, Itachi would still face the impossible choice of sparing his brother and destroying the clan. My current abilities aren't enough, Satoru thought grimly. By then, Itachi and Obito will both have Mangekyo Sharingan. Add in Danzo and the rest of Konoha's forces, and it'll be impossible to survive without serious preparation. The prospect of being caught in such a dire situation made Satoru shudder. While it's fun to dance on the edge, slamming headfirst into disaster isn't part of the plan. Thinking of the nightmare scenario awaiting the clan, Satoru made a firm decision. If Itachi's going to team up with Obito, I'll cut off that connection before it even starts. And I'll make sure Shursui's abilities stay out of their hands. It was time to start stacking the odds in his favor. If a confrontation was inevitable, Satoru resolved to level the playing field and make it his game to win.